All right, we are onto the excretory system next as our next body system. So again, we're going to learn the basics today, mainly structure, but a little bit of function. And then we'll learn some more detail later on in class. So the key learning attention is that the excretory system removes wastes and excess chemicals from the bloodstream. And after this section, you should be able to explain the function of the excretory system, describe the basic structure in terms of the organs and what they do, and describe the structure of the kidney, the nephron, which is the functional unit of the kidney, and the function of all those parts. So first of all, we're starting with the idea of what wastes actually are in the body. So our bodies have to remove a whole lot of waste that get produced. There's a whole lot of non-solid wastes, so in other words, not feces from the digestive system, that we need to get rid of. And there's a few organs that do it. So the lungs exhale a carbon dioxide. So they pick up carbon dioxide from the bloodstream and exhale it out of our mouth. The sweat glands, they release excess water through our sweat and salts as well, which also comes out through our sweat. And the kidney's main job, which is the main organ in the excretory system, they remove waste chemicals from the bloodstream. And here is the excretory system here, which we'll be focusing on. So they take waste chemicals, send them to the bladder, and then they go out when we release our urine. So overall, what does the excretory system do? It removes waste chemicals, like I just mentioned. And in particular, it's chemicals called nitrogenous wastes, or N-waste for short. And we get them from when we metabolize protein. In other words, when we eat protein in our diet, it gets digested, and then we break apart all those amino acids for energy. So metabolism basically means breaking apart using chemical reactions. So proteins are rich in energy, but once we've eaten them and broken them apart, a lot of the time they become waste products. And the main chemical that they become is urea. Obviously, that's what gives our urine its colour and the smell of urine, which we all know. So on top of the N-wastes, we also get rid of water as part of our urine if it's in excess. Obviously, the more you drink, the more you have to go to the toilet because you've got excess water in your body. There's also excess ions sometimes, depending on if we're eating particularly salty foods, and excess vitamins. And so that's the main role, getting rid of the waste chemicals. The secondary role is also to maintain the ion balance, the pH, so the acidity, and the amount of water in our bloodstream. So all of these processes are maintaining what we call homeostasis. Maintaining homeostasis. And homeostasis is essentially the process of our body maintaining all of its levels to be the same. All the internal levels in our body are staying the same. That's the main idea in the next topic. So for now, it helps us to maintain homeostasis. There's also a few minor hormones that get released from the kidneys as well, although they still have important functions. So vitamin D, which helps regulate our bone density, and EPO, erythropoietin, which helps to regulate the number of red blood cells we have in our bloodstream. So if we're going to say what does it do in one word, the excretory system is one giant filter, like you can see in the diagram. All right, let's learn some basic structure of the excretory system. It's much more simple, possibly the most simple system. There's only 4 key organs. So firstly, we have the kidney, which are the jelly bean shaped organs here. Their job, like we mentioned, is to filter the blood and maintain homeostasis. So that's where the filtering actually happens. The ureters are the thin tubes here. They carry urine to the bladder. The bladder is a hollow organ. It's a hollow sac that stores all your urine. And then when you need to go to the toilet, you pass the urine through the urethra, which is just a thin tube at the end. Okay, let's look into the kidney in detail because it's the most complex and the most important organ in the system. So they're bean-shaped. They've got two layers. So the internal layer is called the medulla, and the outer layer is the cortex, which is the light pink. The light pink area you can see around the outside that has all these vessels inside it. Cortex generally means outer section in many organs. So if you're learning psychology, the cortex or the cerebral cortex is the outer layer of the brain. Inside those two sections is this little unit that we call a nephron. And that's what actually does all the filtering. So we'll learn the details of that next. We've also got the renal artery and the renal vein. So arteries always carry blood away from the heart to an organ, so they carry the blood to the kidney. And veins always carry blood away from organs, so the renal vein carries the blood that's been filtered back to the heart again. All right, so we're zooming in to the nephrons now. If we think of the jelly bean shape of the kidney, these nephrons, the top section is in the outer cortex, and then this loop at the bottom goes down into the medulla. So let's look at the nephron in a bit more detail. This is where the filtering actually happens. So right at the start here, we've got what's called the glomerulus. It's just a really tightly packed ball of capillaries, of one capillary. So it's like you've taken a rope and you've scrunched it all up into this tiny little ball. So that it's a thin blood vessel and it's under really high pressure too. And that's the key area where the filtering starts to happen first. We've then got the Bowman's capsule. The Bowman's capsule collects all the filtrate from the glomerulus once the blood is being filtered, and it's an open duct, so it's there to collect all that liquid and any other materials that come out. Then we've got the tubule, which is the long orange U-shaped part down here. The loop of Henle is the main U-shape part of the tubule as well. And then we've got the collecting duct over on the far side. So the tubule carries all of the filtrate from the blood, and then it carries it to the collecting duct, and the collecting duct carries all of that urine from the nephron, sends it to the ureter, and then it goes to the bladder. So that's the overview. Let's lastly look at how nephrons filter the blood in a little bit more detail. So it's a 4-step process. Like I mentioned, the filtration happens first, and that's in the glomerulus and the Bowman's capsule. So the blood is under really high pressure when it enters this little capillary here in the glomerulus. And the high pressure is enough to force a whole lot of the liquid and the small ions between the gaps in the cells of the capillary. So we've got our cells of the epidermis. And because there's so much pressure, those liquids and small molecules can actually fit through the gaps in the cells out into the Bowman's capsule. So it's water, it's ions and amino acids from our digested proteins, and other small molecules that get forced out. And we call that the filtrate, just like any filtering process. The second stage is reabsorption, because half of those materials aren't actually waste products. So the job of the loop of Henle is to basically reabsorb all those chemicals that aren't wastes and we actually do want to keep in our blood again. So we reabsorb most of the water because it's so valuable, we don't want to waste too much water. Lots of ions and amino acids we're also going to reabsorb in the loop of Henle as well. Anything that's still a waste at that stage, well, that's then passing all the way through the loop of Henle. And then that's going to come up right here to the end of the tubule for the third stage, which is called secretion. So at this stage, the final large waste molecules, the ones that didn't get filtered out initially, they actually have to get exported out of the bloodstream using active transport. So it's pretty much happening in the last section of the tubule here. And the most important molecule that gets secreted here is urea. So that's that nitrogen containing waste, that's our N waste. So the cells of the capillary there, they're sending the urea out of the capillary into the tubule, and they become part of the urine at the very end of the tubule here. And so once we're past that stage, the urine is finished, it's just a complete waste product now. And so then we get to stage 4, which is excretion, and the urine then goes down the collecting duct, out of the kidney, through the ureter, and then into the bladder. And whenever we need to go to the toilet, we're going to get rid of all of those waste products. Alright, so that is the overview of the excretory system and how it filters blood in an overview. Alright, so double check your success criteria. If you have any extra questions, don't forget to bring them into class and we'll work on them next week. See you later.